To our San Francisco Products That Count webinar for May. We've got yet another amazing speaker lined up for you today. But before we jump into that, I want to share a few facts about Products That Count. This, as I always say, is an incredible community that I hope you are maximizing to the fullest. So a few fun facts. This is a community of over 500,000 product managers. That is one of the largest networks of PMs in the world, right? So that's pretty staggering. We also have thousands of videos, podcasts, and articles all on our website, which have been authored, by really the best PMs out there, all the way up to the C-suite executives, like you're getting a taste from today. So I like to say that really, if you are looking for information, if you want that expert level take on something, if you want access to somebody who's been there, done that, and can really give you the advice on how to do it best, start with Products That Count. We've got an amazing YouTube channel alongside our website that is really the place where you should begin. And now a little bit about me. So outside of being the San Francisco chapter lead of Products That Count, I am the Chief Product Officer at NeoGov. If you're unfamiliar with NeoGov, and if you're outside of the government space, you probably are, we are a robust HR platform and public safety platform for really government entities. So think about, managing your people and then going out there and working in the community, whether you are in law enforcement, 911, or fire. And we really provide the tools to do that are specifically designed for the government and the needs of those users. So now on to our main event for today. And I think that this is a really great webinar where we explore this pivotal shift in product management. Right? Gone are the days where product managers are just building and really functioning kind of in this feature factory mode. Today's landscape really means that we have to step up and become these strategic partners in the business, really aligning the needs of the customers with our business strategies so that our companies are ultimately successful. So we have with us today, G. He assures me that nobody other than his mom calls him by his full name. So I will leave that at that. What better? You've got to be somebody fantastic to just be known by an initial. But G is the Chief Product Officer at Carillon, and he's going to unpack this journey from traditional product management to really how you as a product manager can make these strategic business decisions and drive for business success. So through this session, he is really going to share insights on how to leverage strategic frameworks such as design thinking and cost optimization, how you can be better at decision making and ensuring that not only your market meets the demands, their product meets the demands of the market, but really drives the business forward. So like I said, I think this is an incredible session, and whether you catch it live or catch it on record on our YouTube channel, this is an absolute worthwhile listen. And for those of you who are with us live, please make sure to stay on for the back half of this session where we will have live Q&A. So if you're unfamiliar with Zoom, you will see a Q&A section. Please post your questions there. I'll be fielding those questions at the end of the webinar, or you might find it hidden under a ... menu. Just look for that Q&A. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, G.
Denise, thanks so much. I like to start these conversations first by thanking all of you, because I know it's late Central Time. It's also kind of late Pacific Time. I know it's not fun to sit around and listen to somebody talking on a webinar. So I appreciate you showing up. And I'm really hoping that we have a great conversation today. I like to start these conversations less about what I do and what we all do, and just remember that we're all human beings at the end of the day. So I just wanted to share a little bit about myself. And then hopefully this gives you an ability to attach to some of the words that I'll use and my perspective. But first and foremost, and this is like the fun fact that everyone loves, I started my career as an engineer, as an aerospace engineer. So yes, as a rocket scientist, which means I got a little bit of everything, a little bit of hardware, a little bit of software, a little bit of systems. And that's really colored and helped me think through how to do product. I have only ever been a product person. I started my career as a product person, and I'm a product person today. And I've had the opportunity to build hardware and software and services really across all regulated industries, starting with defense and now here in healthcare. So a lot of my perspectives come from the idea that what we're serving here are people, and we're making an impact on the lives of people, and the products and services that we build are dealing directly with people, their health, their finances, their education, and all the other things that we live with in a regulated environment. And so a couple of the fun things. I love my fun fact only because it does generate thought. I've had the opportunity to travel a lot, and I've crossed both meridians, crossed the prime meridian as well as the equator on a ship, which makes me the proud owner of the moniker Shellback. And I have a lot of fun hobbies I get to do outside of work. But that's enough about me. Just a sense of, look, we're all human beings. I want to get to know you all as human beings. I want to have this conversation as a human being. Now let's jump into a little bit of how we can increase our impact as product managers. And it starts with this. We are seeing this product-led shift across industries. Slack, Twilio, DocuSign, everyone has gone through this process of we should have a product market focus. We shouldn't just be thinking about one parameter, we should be thinking about all of them. And as product managers, we're right in the middle of that. And we're often called the CEO of our product. What does that mean? And more importantly, is that true? And I just happen to love this graphic because for me, this represents exactly the question we're asking for. Are we as product managers at the table? Are we in the places where the strategies are created? Are we in the places where the decisions are made? And this fundamental transformation, this transformation of product-led or market-led and increasing our impact as product managers comes from this process where we have to think about how do we put ourselves at the table? How do we expand that aperture of what product does and be in a place where the business and everyone else looks and says, you're right. Why are we having this conversation if product is not at the table? So it is not anymore confined to this idea of, hey, just go build something. It is a mindset that says we have to think more strategically. Not only do we think about product market fit in our customers and our markets, but revenue, profitability, and all the other things that live inside of the various business constructs that we serve. And so at Carelon, one of the things that we've done, and we've started on this journey, is find very specific places where product can come up the stack, be a business partner, be at the table. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the rest of the presentation. So what's the first transformation? Well, first of all, and I have to be very clear about this, and I know some of my colleagues are on the call and they're going to laugh when they hear me say this, but product-led does not mean product in the driver's seat. That doesn't mean, we're taking everybody and we're running along with them or we're leading them. It is all about being in this place where you can lead the business with everyone else that's around you. Being product-led means you have to increase impact from where you operate. And you operate in the product organization. And so what does that mean? That means you have to go from being a builder to being a business partner. You have to go from not executing requirements, but understanding the why behind the initiatives from the perspective of the businesses and the people that you serve. It comes in having a voice in the strategy and helping shape the strategy and not implement it. It's being viewed as a trusted advisor to the business, not just an order taker from the business. And it really comes from being able to focus on the business outcomes and those impacts, not just the features. Now, look, we all say this stuff all the time. I know we do. But what does it actually mean to do it? And how do you actually get there? And that's what I really want to make sure we dig into here. It starts, again, by being able to master this balance. To master the balance between what we know how to do, which is customer needs, market forces, product market fit, and the other bits of the business that, might be a little bit foreign or might be a little bit opaque to us. In healthcare, we have this this adage. It's called no margin, no mission. We are in a business of serving people. That's what we do all day long. And the people we serve are ourselves, we serve our families, we serve our communities. But we can't continue to do that if we don't make money doing it, if we don't have a good financial base. So step one as a product leader is to come out of this idea of I'm building features and start to understand what it is that we do as a business and how the product fits into that. And this, by the way, is not just the realm of the CPO. It is the realm of everybody in the product organization. It's the product managers, it's the product owners, it's the business owners, the business analysts. We need to be conversant in the business of the business. Now, of course, we are the experts in customer and market. But how do we understand everything else? What do we understand from the legal environment, especially in a regulated industry? That's really important. What about the financials? What about the true regulatory environment? What about the operating environment? We have to start thinking about how to understand all of those things, delve into those places, run alongside the people that are the experts there so that we can build a better product. And in building a better product, be the trusted advisor, be the person that can speak for all of those various different places. Now, one other key point to make there, we don't speak for legal. We don't speak for finance. We don't speak for regulatory. We speak of them. We speak for how that impacts the overall product. And we speak for how all of that needs to come together to ultimately serve the needs of the business. So one of the things we do here at Carillon is we take a journey-based approach to how we build a product. And so what that means is I'm not just thinking about a feature. I'm not just thinking about the agglomeration of features. I'm thinking about this end-to-end journey. And when we do that, it really helps each one of the product managers and myself, frankly, say, oh, I got it. At every point of the journey that we're designing our solution for, designing our product for, what are the various different pieces that we need to be able to speak to? The most efficient part of this process is being able to, as a trusted advisor, go back to our legal team, go back to our compliance team, go back to our regulatory team and say, here's what I'm building. And here's some of the aspects of what I'm building that impact you. So they're not coming from the ground up. They're not generating. They're actually iterating. That's how you increase your impact. You're going in not as an expert, but as someone that is conversant in their needs, so you can help them build a better product. Now you'll notice I continually use this word synthesis, synthesis, synthesis. What does that mean? Well, again, it's being able to bring all of these pieces together: business, product, operations, all the things that live around that. If you're conversant in those needs, then you can be seen as a business partner versus just the person that is offering the tech or offering the feature. That also means your communication has to change. And so again, a lot of the things that I do with my team here at Carillon to say, you know what, when we talk about product with ourselves, we talk about product as we all normally do. When we're out in the world in the business, our communication changes, our vocabulary changes. The words we use are oriented towards business impact, business value, member experience, member impact, all the things that the business people need to hear. And why do we do that? Because it puts us in a place where first, perceptively, and then in reality, we are the trusted advisor. We are increasing our impact by moving up the chain. Those conversations are critical. Being able to have those conversations is critical. And it does two things. It drives trust. It is someone coming to you and saying, I understand your world. I understand what you need. I am here to help you. We're here to serve. As product people, that's what we do every day. And it feeds the shift. It feeds the shift, that fundamental shift in how product is seen in the organization, as we talked about before. That synthesis, that ability to speak of value, those two things working together starts to have all of the people around us say, you know what? Where's product? Why is product not at the table? We should be asking product these questions because they have a perspective on it, but also we know that we are going to be listened to when it comes time to go develop the thing that we're going to get out into the world. And we know it's going to work because, everyone listened to us. So how do you do that? How do you find that balance? First, I think is developing the business acumen. Now, those of you that are on the West Coast, this one's going to be a tough one because it's a tough one for me. You got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and listen to the earnings call. There is so much insight that you get in that hour or 30 minutes or an hour of investment of time, because not only do you understand the language of the business, but you understand how it's talked about in the outside world. You understand how to tune those conversations inside, and you understand what's most important. The second thing is you understand, and I do this too, understand what your competitors are doing. So guess what? You might have to get up at 5 a.m. a couple different times, but understand that competitive landscape, not from the perspective of the features, but from the competitive business. And then think like a CEO. Think about all of the things that surround the thing that you're building. What is the strategy? Where does that strategy need to go? And then provide your partners the framework to be able to put that in. A lot of things we do here at Carillon are based on this idea that we operate at scale. We're part of a Fortune 20 company. We have hundreds of thousands of associates. We have tens of millions of members. You can't just make a decision and say, you know what, I'm going to have that work to strategy. I'm going to go build that. So be a trusted advisor to your business partners. When you work with finance and legal and the business folks and the operations folks, provide them a structured way of being able to talk about what you're building, help them prioritize, help them understand what they need to give you and what you need to be able to give them. More importantly, give them the opportunity and the ability to make data-driven trade-offs between what they're doing. How do you be a trusted advisor? You don't say yes or no. You're a trusted advisor because you're listening to their needs and helping them synthesize, there's that word again, how to make that part of the experience you want to deliver. Your impact as a product manager, your ability to be a trusted advisor, your ability to be at the table comes from being able to have those conversations that way, based on what the business needs, driven by the value, what it delivers to the business in a structured, data-driven way to make it easy for folks to understand. So how do we do that? How do you really do that? Well, you got to start to become an expert in other things other than, again, the customer and the market and the tech and the features. And it's really being able to leverage some of those core frameworks that you may use in the business or that you can bring to the business. Some of the ones that I'm a real big fan of, one are just human-centered design and design thinking, not from the perspective of here's how we think about what the user needs when we're building the product, but it is about true user centricity, being customer obsessed, thinking about what the customer and the market need, and being, as a product person, the lens, the frame, whatever, whatever analogy you want to use, that takes all that information, puts it together and synthesizes it into what you want to be able to deliver in the context of the business. Thinking about the journey and using that journey-based approach as a salesperson, speaking to sales, not just, hey, here's what you need to go get to your revenue. Here's how you're going to go convince your end user that you want to do that. You want to buy what we have. Pricing. And you know what? Like, I'll be the first one to say it, math isn't fun sometimes, but being able to speak to and understand the nuances of how the product is priced and how the product pricing has an impact on the financials, how it has an impact on operations, how it has an impact on how you actually choose what to build is critical. And I will say personally, that was one of the biggest aha moments I had when I first had to do a pricing exercise. You learn very quickly how to synthesize all of that information together and see, how I'm building the product actually does have an impact on how much we make from a revenue perspective. It's not just about making the sale. It's about how it's built, how it operates, what its margin is. And ultimately, when you go have that conversation with financing and say, oh, you know what you're talking about here. The other two I'll talk about are a little bit different. And they really come back to this idea of we as product people, we aren't necessarily the center of the wheel, but we are the trusted advisor. And so we have to be able to look at the portfolio of things we create, even if it's not our own product, and being able to find connectivity. At Carillon, this is fundamental because our whole job here is to integrate and create cross journeys, right? Cross portfolio journeys. These ideas that healthcare is not episodic but continuous. So how do I bring various pieces together? That works whether you have one product or it works if you have multiple products. And so taking a portfolio, a more holistic strategy approach. And again, I said it before, being data-driven. As product people, we're naturally data-driven, but being able to use that gentle data-driven approach to help our business partners see the value in what we're doing, how you're choosing to build, why you're choosing not to build, and ultimately how it's impacting what they do and work on every day is critical. Being data-driven in the right way, speaking about data in the context of the value your product is delivering is key. And I'll give you an example of this. One of the things we do here at Carillon is we use data-driven approaches to prioritize. And we're pretty draconian about it. You have a list that starts at 1 and ends at 50, and you are somewhere on that 50. And our various business partners might come to us and say, well, how come I can't develop whatever I want to develop? Well, I'm sorry, you're number 30, and we can only work on number 1 through 10. That is an easier conversation to have, and it is a conversation that engenders trust because it's built on data rather than, I don't have the time, I don't think it's a good idea, it's not really in my priorities. So using that data as a mechanism, as an underlying rail to drive trust and increase your impact is super critical. So as I wrap this up and then we'll get to Q&A, what does this really look like? And again, we've all seen this, we all say we are the synthesis point, but increasing your impact as a product leader, using all the things that we just talked about in the last few minutes as the lens to go from all of the needs that live there on the left-hand side and turn it into the right user experience and the right business outcome is critical. It is all about synthesis, but it's not just about being able to synthesize things. It's about being able to understand and guide each one of our stakeholders in the right way to get to the right solution and then represent those solutions back to your partner. Going back to that very first slide and that very first comment, this is what it actually means to be the CEO of the product, having a seat at the table, being able to speak, influence, and impact, not just on features, but on sales, on marketing, on finance, on regulatory, on customer success, on engineering, in a way that they feel like you've heard them, you have a good understanding of their space, and they trust you. This is all about increasing your impact. So how do you do that? 5 key points. learn the business, engage those leaders. One of the questions I get asked is, well, I don't have a finance background. I don't either. How did you learn finance? I sat with my finance leaders. I sat at their feet and I learned. I said, show me how this works. Everyone wants to teach someone else what's going on. It's one of the greatest traits we have as human beings. So I sat with my finance folks. I sat with my legal folks. I sat with my regulatory folks. I sat with the sales and the ops folks. I said, I'd like to understand what you do. I'd like to understand how you operate. I didn't have to go read a book. I didn't have to go take a class. I learned from the practitioners. If on one side, that helps you learn it. On the other side, it builds trust because now you're a willing participant. You're willing to engage and listen to what it is they have to say. That trust is engendered at the executive level. That trust is engendered at every level. If you're a CPO, you do this anyway. If you're a product manager, if you're a business analyst, you're a product owner, go have those conversations. Find those people in your organization. Find those people in your network. That's the way to understand. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate it in the right way based on the value that you're delivering, your product's delivering, and the value that you as a trusted advisor can provide. Part of that is how you speak about it. Part of that is how you act. And the last one, and again, my colleagues on the call are going to laugh when I say this, but this is really key to all things. You have to be humble about how you go about making this transformation and having this engagement. You will face resistance. You absolutely will face resistance. People will say, I don't want to have this conversation with you. People will say, yeah, it's not your job. Be humble. Go in with that learning mindset that says, I want to be able to do a better job of serving you. I want to be able to do a better job of helping you understand what we're doing so we can ultimately together create the better product. I want to be your partner. That is how you increase your impact. You learn the business, you speak in other people's terms, you engage people, you speak about value, and you're humble about it. That is how you come up the chain. And I'll tell you, that has been my journey. Maybe it's not so much the humility part, but that has been the journey of being able to go point by point, engaging these other leaders, expanding my ability to have impact, and ultimately getting to a place where my leaders trust me to have the conversation. Not me to do all the work sometimes, but to have the conversation. And when they know that they have a trusted advisor in me, we can have the conversation about how to make the product better. Product is now at the table. We are consulted. We are asked about the strategy. We input into it. We're asked about how we should do pricing. We're obviously asked about how to create the product, and we're asked about how to operate it. When we think about our ultimate goal, to develop the products and solutions that have impacts on people's lives, that's how we do it better. We do it better by increasing our impact. We increase our impact by doing the 5 things I just talked about. So I'll stop there and say thank you. Thank you for giving me the time to share this with you. Thank you for giving me time to listen. I truly believe that product's job in the world, product's role in all of our industries is to deliver these great solutions. And this is how we can do it. So I think I saw one question pop up in the chat, but Denise, should we migrate over to Q&A?
Yeah, let's do it. So G, first of all, thank you. I think you shared so much there. There were a lot of strategies and advice that you gave throughout that. Maybe just a recap, because I know you touched on a lot of it. How do you convince people that you should be their partner, right? What are, like, if I'm coming in new to a company, for example, what might be the steps that you think I should take kind of on that day one?
I think one is you present yourself that way, because, and again, from personal experience, everyone's, oh, you're just a product person, and everyone has a very preconceived notion of what it is we do as product. And so part of it is in that very first introductory conversation, I often tell people, I am a product person as you might think, but these are all the other things that I do, and these are all the places where I would like to work with you and get a better understanding of what you do so we can work better together. And note the words. It's not, I want to know. It's, what can we do together? Our job is to serve. Product people serve. We serve the organization. We enable the revenue. We enable the results. We do that by being great servant leaders and engaging with people. So it's simple. That's where you start, and then of course you follow it up with, let me help me learn. Let me be humble about what you do, and you couch that in the, if I can understand what you do better, your job gets easier. No one wants to do the hard work. And so when I go to my finance folks, it's, I want to understand what you do. So the next time I come ask you a question, you're not starting from ground zero. I'm asking you the intelligent question. And so we can spend more time iterating and less time generating from scratch.
Nice. I love that. So if I'm also, maybe somebody who's been that classic builder, it sounds like I could press the reset button And how I might do that is like, go start with the finance person and say, hey, I want to go from here to here. I want to be that partner. And so like, let me start by learning.
Yep.
Love that. So now, once you've established this partnership, right, you've built this trust, then what are the strategies that you've put in place to make sure, hey, we maintain alignment on an ongoing basis? Are there certain forums that you've leveraged? What are sort of the tips and advice that you can give to us? Because, by the way, while you were very humble and didn't brag about it, I think your portfolio ends with a B. And so you figured out how to scale this model. And so I think we could all use those words of wisdom.
So there's a couple things I do. And one, again, some of these things seem very simple to say, but when you put them in practice, they become powerful. One, I dedicate a not insignificant amount of my time every week, every month in engaging with all the people that I have really great partnership relationships with. So what does that mean? And I'll tell you my number. I spend 40% of my time in aggregate with my business partners. And it's not just a, hey, let's go have a chat. It's 40% of my time having the directive, what is going on in our respective worlds, driving alignment, learning about what's going on. Why? Because if I know that, then as a leader in my organization, I can lead my team. I can provide that information. The other thing is, find those places where, and this is hard because it depends on the size of the organization, but find the places where the conversations are being had. Now, of course, you can't, not all of us can go to a board meeting, right? We can't all go to the strategic planning meetings, but having that ability to insert yourself in those conversations, even if it is the post conversation, is super critical. But I think that first strategy is critical. It is also really super difficult, right? Because that's 40% of my time that I'm not, if I were a product manager, because I did this even when I was a PM, when I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to be doing as a product manager. I'm not writing requirements. I'm not doing research. I'm not working with my engineering teams. I'm not working with my stakeholders, but it is a invaluable use of time. So that's kind of where I start. And in addition to, finding the other place where you can go. I think the other thing to do though, from a forum perspective, is going outside and finding those opportunities to learn in other places. And it's not so much, I'm going to go listen to a podcast. It's going and finding the other product managers that you're allied with and working with and learning from them. Because in many places, that's where the core knowledge comes from. It's from the community, right? And so being able to have that conversation, I think is also super valuable.
And so, you obviously have a lot of experience. And so you've built that network of probably your trusted peers, trusted advisors that you can go to. Are there any other tips and advice if I'm somebody who maybe doesn't have that network, how might you suggest they approach it?
Yeah, it's basic, right? You just have to reach out. You just have to reach out. But I think on the other side, like as product managers, we have to support each other. But one of the things that I did very early in my career is I had this very transparent conversation with my leadership to say, this is what I need. And so rather than, and again, this was inside the company, rather than trying to go cast around and trying to find people, I asked my leaders to say, can you bring me into the conversation? Can you introduce me to the right folks? Oftentimes, that's just a little bit that you need to break the ice. And it's also, frankly, it's kind of what you need when you're walking into other organizations that have that preconceived notion of what product does. So probably the best examples I can give you is I went to one of my leaders and said, look, I need to get in front of sales. Sales is not going to give me the time of day. They're not, and they shouldn't, because they have other more important things to do, like maybe sell our product. And so I asked my leader to introduce me to the sales leader, and it was a very, kind of awkward, weird, speed dating, first date type of conversation to start off with. But what I was able to do, fortunately, in the first couple of conversations, is show that sales leader the value that I could provide her. And also just that I was super just curious. Like, I'm not here to do anything more than learn. And again, that engages that we all want to teach each other what's going on. After that, I was able to build a relationship. So you're not alone. You're not alone in it. Leverage the people around you. And then, depending on the size of your organization, leverage your leaders, because they want you to grow too, but make it clear why you're asking for that intro or you're asking for that air cover.
Yeah, I love that. It's like, put your leaders to work, I think.
Yeah, make them work for you.
Yeah, make them work for you. And I think I've had a similar experience as well, where I had some, one of the sales leaders that I knew well, like, walk me through everything. Tell me about all the roles. Tell me about, pipeline development. And it was incredibly educational. That's great. That's great. So humility, I heard that a lot through what you've been talking about so far. what are the other attributes, you know, as you were looking at people that can make this shift,
Mhm.
right, from builder to strategic business partner? What are you expecting of your team? You know, and this might be your directs, but it's certainly all the way down to your point to the product manager.
There's a couple things. One, there's this not this inherent knowledge of all things, but the recognition that the knowledge of all those things is necessary. And you know, you see this. I see this in product managers that are coming through the transition. There are some product managers that you'll have the conversation with, and the value isn't there. Like they don't fundamentally see the value. And that, by the way, that's perfectly okay. It's just it's a different you live in a different place in the organization when you do that. So one is that innate curiosity or that understanding that we have to be able to look at it. Two, and again, this is a little more of a soft skill than a hard skill, is the understanding that as a PM, we're not going to do this by ourselves. We've all been taught as product managers, center of the wheel, CEO of our product, it's us. No, it's not us. It's a collective. And one of the places where I've seen product managers fail, frankly, this is where I failed early in my career, is in having that attitude. Like, it's me, I'm going to make these decisions. No, you know, I actually have very little decision-making power. It is a I am a facilitator of a decision-making solution, right? A decision-making system. I may give you the system and the guidelines. That is what's going to drive it forward. So having that mindset. And then third, the hard skill is I love it when one of my product managers comes to me and says, you know what, I took a class. I went out, I did the webinar, I took the, you know, the certificate, whatever it was, to learn something that is fundamentally outside of my experience. Great. You know what? Now we can go build on that. But you know, if you're not willing to do those three things at a minimum, then you're going to stay in that, you know, you're just a builder, you're just a builder. And you won't know, you won't be able to have the conversations. You won't have that starting point of knowledge where someone can say, oh, I see that you took that first step. You made it, you made that first overture to me to say, look, I understand it. And I'll tell you, my first kind of output with finance was that I didn't go to the finance people right away. I went and did some research. Like I went and learned the terms. I listened to the earnings call and I said, hey, I heard this. What does that mean? Like, how does that impact our business? And they're like, oh, okay, great. There you have the hook. These are all simple things, right? This is not rocket science to that product, but engaging them in that way from where we are as product, one, breaks the perception for sure. And two, it starts you down on that journey.
Nice, nice. So what I hear there is a ton of growth mindset.
Okay.
And the other thing I hear you saying is do your homework,
Do your
right? Like
homework for sure.
they're willing to educate you and they want to educate you, but like at least have come in and done the
Mhm.
basics. I love that. It's funny that you mentioned blind spot because a question came in that said, or where have you seen product managers or leaders go wrong or get distracted? What blind spots to be mindful of?
Great question. And you know, one, we all come from a place of our basic education, right? And so in a lot of cases, product managers come from engineering. Sometimes they come from marketing. So let me use those two as an example. Your fundamental blind spot is the one where you go back and you leverage the things that you already know. So product managers come out of engineering. Your blind spot is, you know, I got it. I came from there, so I know what's necessary. Product managers that came from marketing, same thing. It's the hardest place to go back to because that's your expertise. You came from that organization or you came from that background. So what are those guys doing? That I
Yeah.
think is it's probably the biggest place. And the second one, and again, it goes back to this idea that we are the facilitators that serve the organization to go and deliver. It's the idea that, you know what, if the decision that I'm making is not the decision that gets ratified, that's possibly also okay. But you know, my blind spot is just because I didn't get my way doesn't mean that it's not going to be something that I want to, you know, be able to go and support.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. This question can maybe be interpreted a couple different ways, but what is one thing you would do differently as a CPO? And this might be something maybe you do differently given your experiences, or
Yeah.
maybe it's also, hey, what's one thing that as you make that leap into CPO, you know, that sort of sets you apart from that next tier? And maybe both of those answers would be great to hear.
Yeah. You know, the one thing I think I would do differently, and so let me speak one from the perspective of transformation is, you know, you have to, when you're doing transformation, you have to find this balance point between being the bull in the china shop, which I've done and failed at, and taking it too slow, which I've also done and failed at. And so one of the things that I would do differently always is take my initial thought process of, I think I'm going to go down this path. But again, I won't name the company to protect the innocent, but in one of my first, higher level jobs as a product leader, I did that. I came in and said, I'm going to go do this, right? For those that are old enough on the call, I did an Alexander Haig. Like, I'm in charge now. We're going to go do it this way. And so what I would do differently in every conversation is, if that's my natural first inclination, do the opposite, right? And do it thoughtfully, but do it opposite. And as you're jumping into, not even just a CPO role, but if you're a product manager, individual product manager, jumping into a product management leadership role, or you're moving into a product management executive role, the one thing you can do differently is, well, not do differently, but not do, is remember that where you're coming from is not where you're going. So as a product management leader, you have to think differently than you did as a product manager. You have to think about the synthesis of what all the product managers are doing. And so it's almost like saying, take that initial gut reaction that you're going to have to something, step back and put it back through the lens of, is that really the right thing to do now from where I am? And I will say this, I do this daily. Like, I do this, and what I don't do is second guess myself, but I take that lens to say, if my job here is to be the trusted advisor, is the action I'm about to take going to hurt or help being a trusted advisor? And sometimes it doesn't help. And sometimes it's also okay, right? Because you got to make people uncomfortable sometimes. You got to push the envelope. But it is about that constant thought process about our job, our ability to be effective, our ability to have impact is driven on that idea of trust. It's driven on the idea of competence. And so everything you do, how do you continue to drive that narrative forward?
How do you know when you've got it right in that situation? Like, I love that example that you give about speed, right? How do I know that I'm pushing hard enough, but not pushing too hard? And so in all those situations, right, there's a balance, right? And it's a strategy when there's an opposite strategy that you could take. And so how do you validate, like, I kind of landed in that sweet spot?
There's the hard answer and the soft answer, right?
Yeah.
And the soft answer is, you look at the people you're working with, and are you getting the engagement you want? You look at the people you're working with, and it's sometimes it's as simple as, is someone picking up the phone when you call and answering the questions? You can tell really quickly when you've lost somebody, right? When they've disengaged. But I think the real answer to that is in the hard, it's the hard measurement. And so when we do, as we've done transformation here at Carolyn, there are metrics. There are metrics that I laid out on day zero that said, this is how I know we are successful in the product transformation. Here's how I know I am successful, not just in leading the transformation, but achieving what it is that we're trying to do. Transformation for the sake of transformation is useless, right? It's just like watching a movie. And so having the hard metric that says success comes from, what? I reduced the time it takes to get a product out, because I know what it takes today. It took me less time. I increased my ability to attain the revenue goal or the op gain, the margin goal, or whatever that goal happens to be. And you start to see that over time. Some of these are leading, some of these are lagging. But what I would say is, you have to have a hard metric measurable to know that you're getting there. So then and then of course you can always turn back and say, well, why is that person not picking up the phone when I
Right.
call? What is that soft measure? Look, they're not aligned to that metric. And it rolls back to the first part of our conversation. How do you build trust? How do you increase your impact? Well, you know what? You're coming in with the data. You're coming in with the metrics, saying, this is not about whether you like me, I like you, or, we're going to work well together. At the end of the day, in the corporate environment, we're all aligned around the same goal. So if our incentive is aligned and our goal is aligned, that's another path forward to know that you're going towards the right direction.
Love that. I can't let you talk about metrics and hear you talk about data driven before and not continue this conversation. So you kind of gave some hints, right? There about how quickly it takes to get product out the door. That's a metric that you're paying attention to. You briefly kind of said margins. So I know that's another metric you're paying attention to. What are the other things, if you're looking at, either product or the broad landscape of the business, that you're focused on, so that the folks watching here can walk away with their checklist and say,
Yeah.
pay attention to these things?
So I would say, what are the fundamental metrics of your business? And so for us, number of members we have the ability to serve, our revenue, our op gain, in our industry, medical loss ratio, and then a few others. And again, you go back to, I'm a trusted advisor to the people I serve. So when I go talk to the business people, I'm not talking about the feature. I'm saying the thing that we have built is going to meet your revenue, op gain margin, MLR, engagement, whatever goal, right? And so it's going to vary product by product by product, even in my own portfolio. Those are the fundamentals. But when I think about this, the interplay between revenue and margin, there are other things, there are other sub metrics that live in there that I may talk to business owners about, and then we come back to the broader level goal that we have at the portfolio level. So that checkbox, sorry folks, go read the P&L. That those are the metrics that you need to be thinking about, right? And that they're going to vary. And then also think about the soft metrics, right? Again, in the light of the people that we serve, the other metrics I like to think about is, what does their experience look like? Because you can think about the hard metrics. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. The evolution, the trust, right? The impact comes when you say, wait a minute, remember that I'm serving human beings here. And so what does their experience look like? And how do I go measure that? You make that part of your conversation. So why did I make that revenue number? Well, it's because my engagement with my member went up 4 or 5 bips. And that makes a difference. Or I gave them a better experience, which means, at least in healthcare, I made it so the medicine came to your house and you didn't have to go to the pharmacy. Simple, right? Small thing, but the improvement in that experience drives all these other metrics. So both sides. Your check boxes though have to start with the hard metrics of your business, because that's what people care about. And then you can roll through what the product needs to do to support that.
Yeah, I love that example. I can just imagine, the prescription landing on somebody's doorstep and it's like the NPS number immediately goes up.
Yep.
No, it's great. And I think the other thing you said there is it's not a one size fits all model. Like, look, feature by feature, they're all going to drive different things. And so it's back to like, what is the outcome that you're going to get
Right.
with that feature? Because the feature is in service of the outcome. It's not the other way around.
And speak to it.
Yeah.
When we talk about things internally, we might talk about the feature. When you talk about it as you go up the levels, right? Now it's about the value that you're delivering. And so the feature I built is going to deliver this revenue. Oh, I got it. That's why it's important.
Yep. Love it. Another great question here. Can you talk more about your journey-led approach and how your team is organized across the journey?
Sure. And so when I say the journey-based approach, one of the things what we've done at Carelon, understanding that our business is to create solutions that serve our health plans and then also serve other health plans that are outside of our core corporate universe. We have to think about this in terms of who we're serving. And again, this is simple. Of course, know your customer, right? Know your user. Well, in our case, we have the members that we serve. We have the providers that serve the members, but that we also serve because they're the fundamental caregivers in the system. And then we have the associates. We have the people that actually make the healthcare system work. By the way, no one of those three actually buys the product, right? So those are the users. And then we have the actual buyers. And then we have the people that operate the system internally to support the buyers or that support what the members and the providers do. And so we had to create a set of journeys, of healthcare journeys, of operational journeys. We have a sales journey. We have a support journey. And we put all those together to say, how do we do that? So I'll give you a great example. We have a product in the world that supports members that have cancer. It's an oncology product. And so we had to create that end-to-end journey that says, here's what that journey looks like. Now, where am I going to drop the probe? What are the individual pieces of that journey? And now you go back to what we're talking about here. As a product manager, I might say in just a pure feature perspective, oh, I need to have an intervention for a member that has cancer. Okay, so that's a feature. Great. Now what? All right. Or do you take that journey-based approach and say, at every point in this journey, I understand what the problem is in that journey. Healthcare is continuous. I, as a person with cancer, don't want to have to do certain things. I might be bedridden. I might not be able to leave the house. So what do I want? I'll use the medication example again. I want to make sure that when my medication is necessary, it shows up. Great. That is an experience in the journey. So let's look at what we need to go to deliver that. And then how do I talk about it? How do I build it? How do I partner? How do I buy whatever I do to actually get it made? What are the legal and regulatory constraints that I have to follow? How do I make sure that now, from a data perspective, it connects backwards into the other pieces of the journey? That's how we take that journey-based approach. It is this sense of rows and columns. The row itself is the journey. The columns, sorry, yeah, that's right. I always get these backwards. The row itself is the journey. The columns are the pieces that have to go make that happen. And that's how our team is set up. So inside Carelon, our product team is rows and columns. I have a row that is a product strategy row. They look across everything at the highest level and say, how do we deliver on this end-to-end journey? I have a row underneath that called portfolio, because we have a whole bunch of products. And what we want to be able to do is tie them all together. So someone's going to be able to look at it end to end and say, oh, you want to go create a solution. I'm going to go pick all these different things. I'm going to be able to plug them together. We have our columns, the deep subject matter expertise that comes in being product managers. And by the way, we all know how to live in a column because that's what we do every day. So it has to be super deep. So we have a bunch of columns that build up all the fundamental capabilities and all the fundamental solutions that we have. And then there's another set of rows. And the rows are the data, because the data is what feeds everything that we do, and our platform. And so what are the fundamental shared pieces that we do? So rows and columns. So when you think about Conway's law, right, we're going to create, we look like the solutions we create, and the solutions we create look like us. Because we're a row and column organization, our solutions can be rows and columns. They can be one end-to-end view powered by deep subject matter expertise. That is not necessarily the model to use everywhere, but I am a really big fan of having at least a few columns and then at least one row, because what you do need is that synthesis across. Even in a single product model, you still need to have each one of your broad areas of expertise as your columns, and then something to synthesize it across the top. And me being what I am, you have to have something underneath for data, because you know, at the end of the day, the data is what powers the whole system. And so if you haven't abstracted that out, you got to think about how to do that.
You are talking to another data person too.
Yes,
but
exactly. Yeah.
let me reiterate what I think I heard you say there, because I think this is a great point. These columns, as you see it, they're like services. So I could imagine maybe that service that you talked about delivering, you know, prescriptions to somebody's doorstep. And then there might be another product manager who maybe owns sort of like oncology or that service. And are they stitching together these services to say, let me think about the horizontal experience of the end user, and I'm going to kind of pick what I need along that journey?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and the value in thinking about it that way is you have the product manager thinking about what the holistic end to end is.
Yeah.
And then you have everyone else, all the people they partner with, picking all those various different pieces. By the way, this model works even at the smallest of scales. Unless you're the one product manager for all things, where, you know what, then it's rows and columns in your head, as opposed to in reality, right? But it works even in smaller organizations, because again, you want to drive those product managers to be able to go super deep into their subject matter expertise. I can go to one of my product line managers, which are my columns, and ask them, for your column, you can tell me about the market, the competitors, the financials, all the things. They have that full deep view. I don't ask my portfolio people to have that level of depth, because they can't. They're a foot deep to the hundreds of feet deep that those product line managers are. But that effective partnership between the two is what allows us to deliver that end-to-end journey, that have that holistic view.
Yeah, that great user experience. No, I love that. I love that. When you and I were chatting in preparation for this, we talked a little bit about this idea of working in these regulated industries and trying to make sure that that doesn't eat up sort of all of your must-do list.
Yeah.
And so can you share a little bit about your perspective on that? But I want to time box you to a couple minutes, because I would love to pick up the data question and talk about AI to round us up the end here.
Well, and so this is where those data-driven frameworks come into play. And by the way, it's not just regulatory. Sales is the same thing. When you're in a nascent product organization, and your big job is to get the product out to make the next sale, same problem, right?
Yeah.
It's a demand question. How do you manage the demand? So one of the things that we've done here is we have a database system, a data-driven system that says, when you ask for something coming in, what is the net inherent value of it? Right? How do we value the question you have, or the thing that you need, against someone else? And the answer can't be, well, because someone said we have to do it, so we have to go do it. And that someone can be regulation, government, customer, whatever. It has to be something where you can quantify the value of the request. And we use that to say, oh, you know what? I have 50 things. I got to work on the 10s, right? The things are, the 1 through 10. I can't work on 11 through 50 because we just can't do that. We take that approach of being able to quantify using those criteria at a portfolio level. We take it at a product level, and we're just now starting to think about how to do that at a feature or at a build level. it's a mindset shift. It
Yeah,
really is, right? Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're taking all of these inbounds and you have no fundamental way of ranking what to
yeah,
do. And of course, what comes out of that criteria? Value. What is the value of the thing? It also lets you say no. Sometimes,
yeah.
and even in the regulatory space, sometimes we have to say, maybe we don't do it in the way that you think about doing it. We might do it differently, but we'll still meet the spirit and the need, or the actual law of the regulation or the letter of the regulation.
Yeah.
Data.
And
You want to talk about data? I want to give you time to talk about
I
data.
know, and I will say though, that mindset shift, I was on a webinar myself recently, and 40% of the folks said they are not using a model to score.
Yeah.
They're prioritizing. And so I think there's a huge opportunity that you're really laying out here to say, how do we make that shift? Because I think back to your original point, it's about trust building, right?
Yep.
Of like,
Exactly.
I am a trusted partner if I can explain my work and explain why you're 30 versus 10. Well, all right. If I didn't talk about data and I didn't talk about AI and this day and age, I think I would be missing the mark here. And so, like, obviously, last year, this year just continues to be this incredible breakneck pace. And would just love to hear a little bit about your experience. How have you navigated, especially in a regulated industry, some of the changes and maybe some of the pivots? And then back to your point of being this, strategic partner, have you brought other folks along?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that we've gotten everyone around is AI is not a product. AI is AI is not an outcome. AI is a capability we use to deliver value and an outcome. And it is a mantra. We got to keep saying it because otherwise, and we've all been in this conversation. So like AI, right? Well,
Right.
yeah, okay. But what does that really mean? And so it
Yeah.
is about how does AI get us to the point where we can deliver better value, better outcome. And when we think about it in a regulated industry, and especially in healthcare, right? This is evolving. There's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff happening. And so the product managers, at least in our case, have the benefit of having people they can talk
Mm.
through concepts with, talk to ideas with. But the guidance I give everyone when we're thinking about it is think about why we use AI, and you roll back to think about the experience you're trying to create. And we all know this, right? One of the greatest promises of AI in any industry is the opportunity to automate, to take all of those myriad manual tasks that you don't want to have to do, whether it's document ingestion, data review, any one of those things, and let the machine do it. And so when you know that you have the capability to automate, you look at the journey, you look at the experience, and say, you know what? Why am I asking a human being to do that? Why don't I have the AI do that? And why does that approach work? Because now you have a very concrete bounded thing that you want the machine to do, and it has a value point. So I can look at it and say, you know what, if I use the AI to ingest, and I know those of you who are in healthcare are going to laugh at me when I say this, the faxes that we continually use in this industry to communicate back and forth, if I can have the AI ingest the faxes and spit out the structured data and use that in the subsequent product, that's worth something to me. So why am I going to go create something with AI now? Because I can reduce the amount of faxes coming in, which results in a reduction in the manual labor required to actually go transcribe them or do whatever, which results in margin op gain. And so that's how I think about AI, and that's how we kind of incorporate AI into our product process. I will say this too, not thinking about the product itself, the opportunity for us to use AI to be better product managers is legion. So when I think about market research, synthesis of information, getting all of the stuff that's around us every day that we can't possibly read and popping it into an LLM and say, summarize for me. That's
Yes.
fantastic, right? And it is a absolute force multiplier because now I can't read more than 20 books a day or a week or a month. I can double, triple that because it's getting summarized for me. Yeah, you got to watch out for hallucinations and things like that, of course, but I think there's a value to it. I always tell product leaders I work with, remember that there is that part of making ourselves better by
Yeah.
using those AI tools and using that to just make it so it's easier for us to understand. Frankly, when we talked about, are you going to go learn finance? How are you going to learn marketing? How are you going to learn all that other stuff? There's a great tool right there that can summarize information for you and start to give you the points. It helps you do your homework.
Yeah, I love that. And it's back to like, what is the outcomes does that enable even for us?
Yep.
Which
Yep.
is like now you've got time back to go do that strategic work, to go spend that 40% that you've been investing in,
Yep.
with your partners, because it's not like, oh, this tedious work of writing the requirements, I'm having to do it. But I love that you also pointed out, still human in the loop. Still,
Yeah, absolutely.
don't just completely take your hands off the steering wheel. You got to touch it.
Yep, exactly.
No, that is great. That is great. It is fundamentally changing how we work and what we deliver. But in both of those things, I love that you're focused on the outcome and the journey.
Has to be.
Well,
And again, that is our fundamental rubric, right? Outcomes and value. Outcomes and value. And those are the three things we talked about earlier, right? Synthesis, outcomes, and value.
yes.
We increase our impact by synthesizing to deliver outcomes and value across all the things that we have to go and touch.
And in product, our jobs are nebulous in some ways, but that is
Of
the one thing
course.
that we can say we are measured on. So I can't thank you enough. You've imparted so much wisdom today, and this was a whole lot of fun.
Yes,
So really appreciate your time, and thank you. And thanks to everybody who joined us live.
yeah, thanks all. I appreciate the
Take care.
opportunity.
Absolutely.